What's up guys, my name is Bartol if you're new here, and welcome to my first video in a series I'd like to call Life After Oxford Engineering. I've decided to make this little series as I've been getting quite a few questions from all of you asking about what I'm doing now that I've graduated. In this series, I'll look at potential careers I'm looking into post getting an engineering degree, and hopefully take back the curtain on some of these careers that everyone hears about and considers going into after uni, but are all actually quite vague and mysterious. So today we're going to go over management consulting. Management consulting is one of those jobs or careers that at least everyone I knew at Oxford considered applying for, as did I. Actually, I was quite invested in going into management consulting and did a lot of research on it. And in my final year, I even applied for a position at probably the most famous consulting firm to be what they would call a business analyst. The process took about 6 months from start to finish, including the CV and cover letter round, the problem-solving interactive game round, and then 3 interview rounds, which included looking at case studies, and also more personal questions. And unfortunately, after all of this in the final round, I wasn't accepted. Well, not this time. However, I learned a lot from this process and researched management consulting and studied for my interviews for weeks and weeks. And so instead of all this information and wisdom, hopefully, living in just my head, I now get to share it with you. So today we're going to go over what actually is management consulting, what are some projects that a management consultant might actually work on, why I chose to go into management consulting, and some indicators on how to know if this might actually be a good job option for you as well if you're curious. I'll also give you guys a quick life update on my big move to the French Alps. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. Alright, so a quick little background on me if you're new here, just so that all this makes more sense. I graduated from Oxford University this past September 2024. I made a video about it a couple days ago. How I got into Oxford University Engineering without being a maths and physics genius. My advice and some hot takes. What's up guys, my name is Bartol if you're new here. It's on my channel, so just check it out. I'll also link it in my description down below as well. So at Oxford, I completed my master's in mechanical engineering. Not only mechanical engineering, as I said in my previous video, it was quite a big mixture of modules. But notice a big mix and also my change of interest and sort of kept interests over the years. But they were mostly mechanical based. I'm just telling you this because it might give some background on why I wanted to go into consulting afterwards, or just kind of where my interests were at the time. Now having graduated and having some free time, well, free-ish time, I get to go over and tell you guys my thought process when it came to choosing a career after university, one of them being consulting, and just sharing more about consulting in general, what it's like, how to get into it, and how to apply for it. Just all the good stuff. All right, so let's jump straight in. Just before we do all that though, I would ask you guys kindly to go ahead and tap that like button. It'll be really nice of you and I would really appreciate it, and it will help continue making more of these videos. Thank you very much. Okay, what actually is management consulting? Well, by definition, management consulting is the practice of helping organizations improve their performance. So what a management consultant does, big picture, is they work with the leadership of a company to help assess the problems or inefficiencies within that company, gather more information, and then help create and actually in some cases implement these solutions. So some firms are more heavy on the actual strategy side of things, coming up with the ideas and actual strategy. Then others are more heavy on the implementation side, actually putting the ideas and strategies in place. The firm that I applied for actually did a bit of both. So a lot of the time consultants will actually fly to another city or country and then stay there for 3 to 4 days out of the week in order to assess the company that they're looking at. And then they'll fly home to their base city or country where their home office is and stay there for the rest of the week. So as a consultant, you really learn how to pack your suitcase very well, which is a great skill to know. So that's what a management consultant does, big picture. And I'm actually glad that I'm making this video after hearing what actually goes on in these firms from people that actually do these roles on different levels in the firm, because it's interesting to see how their day-to-day sort of differs from what the paper definition of what a management consultant does, or just what the internet says. Because realistically, we all know they spend a lot of time in PowerPoint, a lot of time in Excel, but the answers from the actual consultants were in some cases similar and in some cases quite different. And just while we're here, if you want me to make an in-depth video going over my application process from sending in my CV all the way to the final interview round, just let me know. I'd be happy to make it. All right, so we talked about what a management consultant does on paper, but what are some examples of projects that a management consultant might work on? So some types of consulting projects could include strategic projects, performance improvement projects, turnaround projects, implementation projects, and M&A, mergers and acquisitions projects, amongst many others. Of course, these are just some common buckets that I kind of found when I was researching from my interviews. But yeah, there are plenty of other things they do as well. Now, one part of the interview process, which was a big part of the process, is going through these things called case studies. And most of the ones that I had were definitely more geared towards strategic projects, which could be something like figuring out the best way for a company to enter a new market, or the best way for them to roll out a new line of products, that kind of thing. And each case study highlights one of these aspects of the role, as I mentioned. and test your ability to work through projects based around these types of roles. But yeah, more detail to come in a separate video. But essentially, if you practice well for these and if you're a good problem solver, all projects are essentially to find inefficiencies in a company's approach to something and change their methods in a way that will hopefully make them more money in the future. So why did I decide to actually go into consulting? So I know these reasons are going to sound a lot like reasons I would give in an interview. Well, there probably is some overlap, but this is actually what my thought process was, so bear with me. So first, the way that consulting was kind of described to me by older friends at Oxford who ended up going into consulting, a lot of people look at it as an extra few years of learning. Obviously not learning in school where you sit in the classroom, but a lot of hands-on learning in the sense that you're working with so many different companies and you're just gaining a lot of new experiences across a lot of different industries and seeing the inner workings of companies, which you probably would never have access to otherwise. So this for me was actually a huge pro of consulting because I didn't know exactly what industry I wanted to go into after graduating from university. I knew the general industries and things that I was generally interested in or leaned more towards, which were consumer goods and services, but I really didn't have one specific industry I wanted to go into or one specific company that I really, really wanted to work at. So hopefully what consulting would do was open my eyes to the broad range of industries until I could kind of narrow down what sort of company or what sort of field I really wanted to go into. So the second main reason is that my mind does get a level of satisfaction from making things more efficient. And I know how weird that sounds, but that's not to say I'm an organization wizard or a clean freak or anything like that. In fact, I'm actually pretty okay with my room being kind of messy most of the time. But when I walk into a supermarket, for example, I do recognize, or at least I think about, how things could be more efficiently laid out. Or if I walk into a house, obviously with prior permission, I start thinking about how I could improve the layout, or at least how I think I could improve the layout. Obviously, these are very subjective things, but you know what I mean. My mind is kind of geared towards making things more efficient, or I guess more accurately, I dislike inefficiency. So it's not just I totally didn't know what I wanted to do yet. I had some idea. It's also that I like to think my mind is sort of suited for this job. And the third reason, and this is more of a cool byproduct rather than a full-on reason that I went into the process, but it's that you just gain a pretty good network by working in a consulting job. Since you're working with so many different companies over the few years you work as a consultant, you're meeting a lot of different people. And if you can leverage these connections that you make with the higher ups at those companies, that could potentially be a very useful resource to have, and not even just thinking about it from like a useful standpoint. It's also just very valuable to know a lot of different people in a lot of different industries for obvious reasons. In my Was Oxford University Worth It video here, I go over how the most valuable part about going to a uni like that is 100%, well, maybe not 100%, but a lot of it is the network and the connections that you get, much more so than the actual knowledge that you learn in the classes that you take. An Oxford student, you can skip past some CV stages and go straight to interviews or other perks like that. Also, within each college, if our reasons were good enough, we had the chance to be put in touch with any living St. John's alumnus. This included people like Tony Blair. Sort of the same thing here. The network is just very valuable. That's all I'm trying to say. Something that kind of shows this is the fact that it's not uncommon for consultants to actually get job offers from the company that they're consulting for. If the company gets to know you and thinks that you do good work and that you'd be a good fit for them, then they could potentially give you a job offer as well. And that could just be another cool opportunity, even if it's not one of the main reasons that you would go into consulting. All right, so now some signs or some ways that you might know that consulting might be a good fit for you as well. Well, if the reasons that I already went over myself, one, not knowing exactly what industry I wanted to go into after uni, but wanting to get a wide range of experiences. Two, enjoying organization and just making things more efficient. And three, making some cool connections along the way. Well, then it might be a good fit for you. Now, finally, for my life update, my big move to France update. So actually, having not received that offer from the big consulting firm I talked about earlier, I spent a while in Croatia, as I always do, and in my job over the summer, which is sailing yachts for clients, by wealthy clients. I met some great people and actually received a job as a chef in a chalet in France. I've always loved cooking and have done it to a pretty high level, just day to day. But now I'm here in France, chefing and taking care of, again, some quite wealthy people. And once again, I got this through connection and just by putting myself out there, which I'm not usually very comfortable doing, but it's worth it. If you told me in my final year doing engineering at Oxford that I would be a private chef in France just a year from now, I probably would have laughed and thought you were crazy, but here I am. And I know my university experience is quite different from this, and if you're watching this because of Oxford applications or for careers advice, it is a bit of a wild card to throw in a career as a private chef, but that's what I'm doing. What I do want to stress though is that no matter what you choose in life, what job or career, the most important aspect of it is whether you actually enjoy what you're doing day to day. So think of careers not by their salaries or perks, but by metrics that you care about. And for me, these metrics have always been personal enjoyment and satisfaction for one, but also impact to clients or people on the other side of what you do. And as long as these two boxes are ticked, for me at least, I don't really care about salary, as long as I'm not being exploited. And I don't really care about status. And I know it's quite easy to say that, but anyway, if you want to see some more videos of my day-to-day life here as a private chef, do let me know and I'll see what I can do. I think I'd like making one. But I did get a great deal of messages from you guys asking for careers advice after university. So I just decided to make this video the first chapter of just options after an engineering degree, which in today's video is consulting. And what struck me is that you guys seem to have a very wide range of different job options as well, which I thought were really interesting. Some familiar ones like finance, investment banking, law, which I considered and even applied for myself, and some a bit less familiar. So let me know in the comments what your first full-time job was and what career you would like to see me make a video about in the future. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about consulting. And as always, any questions, comments, concerns, stuff like that, just leave them in the comments below. I'll be reading and answering all of them as always. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy the video, once again, consider subscribing. It would mean a great deal to me. And if you want to see a video I made about how I got into Oxford University to study engineering, I'll link it somewhere here as well. As always, I'll see you very soon in the next one. Goodbye.